I've been having a lot of interesting conversations lately. Today itself has been a pretty interesting day. So, as an educator and as someone who works on an LGBTQ plus nonprofit, you know that especially since 2025 started, I've been trying to have more conscious conversations about allyship because, frankly, those of us in the LGBTQ plus community just really need allies right now. The hate that we have seen perpetuating is mounting, it's becoming exhausting and very daunting for many of us. And the truth is, allies are a way for us to fortify the community, to insulate the community, and help us develop a sense of solidarity. Well, so this week I was invited to guest speak for a high level nursing class at a different college. And I was joined by my dear friend Heather, who you've seen on Researching the Tapestry on a number of episodes. We just got together, we had a conversation about allyship. I introduced everyone to some very sobering statistics, and I also talked about my own history, um, navigating, coming out, working with medical professionals when I was younger, especially on the level of mental health. And then Heather and I both talked about like the allyship component. But the takeaway that I think I've been having a lot with people, because a lot of allies have such great questions they ask, and many of them always ask, well, what can I do? How can I involve myself? And truthfully, I've provided all of that information, and you can find that in many of the videos that I've done, especially the reflecting on, what is the video title? Reflecting on These Uncertain Times. I think those are the two lives that I did, where I shared some allyship tips. And there's some other videos that I've done. In fact, I think I'm going to make a playlist about allyship, which hopefully everyone will find helpful. But I think the one thing that a lot of us aren't really acknowledging when it comes to allyship is the fact that allyship isn't always a comfortable experience. Allies, especially if you are willing to be active, you may have difficult conversations with people who may be hateful. And and I know those conversations can be exhausting. I know they can be frustrating. And I know sometimes our instinct is to pull away and to just not engage with people. And sometimes I think, depending on where your bandwidth is, sometimes it is important to step away. But at the end of the day, I am often saddened when I see allies, the very moment they engage in any sort of dialogue or confrontation, they kind of crumble. Like, they kind of just like wither away and they don't really want to talk about it. And the thing is, if that ever happens, I want to think about the other LGBTQ plus people in the room and potentially other allies in the room and ask yourself, what does that say to those people? Okay. Because even though sometimes we are uncomfortable in being allies because of these difficult conversations we may have to have with hateful people, with troubling perspectives, those individuals in the community are experiencing that hate tenfold because they are the recipients of the hate. And oftentimes they are expected to be the ones to stand up for themselves. I mean, how many of you have probably heard the saying, like, oh, well, if you're getting bullied or harassed, stand up for yourself? And, like, I think there is some sort of important message when it comes to curating the volition within ourselves to advocate for ourselves. But when you are in a marginalized community where you already don't have a lot of support in your corner, standing up for yourself can almost put you in harm's way also, especially if you are the only one in the room who's saying anything. And that's why allies are especially important, because allies can engage the hateful rhetoric in conversation. The allies can be a person that the LGBTQ plus person can go to gain some sort of solace. Now, here is the big fear, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit more in another live that I'm planning on doing at some point. A lot of allies are afraid to engage in dialogue or confront problematic behavior or rhetoric because they may be afraid of doing or saying the wrong thing. And, or like maybe they may be afraid of bulldozing over someone in the LGBTQ plus community, or maybe they're afraid of, using someone's pronouns incorrectly or using a name incorrectly. And at the end of the day, I want to say we're human beings. We're going to make mistakes. And sometimes allyship isn't always comfortable, but that's okay. When it's uncomfortable, when you are taking that initiative and addressing that hateful rhetoric on behalf of someone in the community, it might feel uncomfortable, it might feel vulnerable, but if it feels that way, that means you are doing something right. And bandwidth permitting and mental health permitting, I think that when that feeling happens, we need to lean into it just a little bit. All right. Because our discomfort can matter, absolutely. But what the vulnerable people around us see when we do that is just as important. Okay. Because it shows them that they are not alone. It shows them that, there is someone who's got their back. And at a critical juncture, if somebody's having like a critical mental health juncture, that can be so unbelievably validating. That can be very, very empowering for the individual. Okay. So, like, yes, if you are uncomfortable about like maybe saying the wrong thing, or maybe you're just not good at confrontation, that's fine. Do your best. That's all we can hope for. And if you do make a mistake, apologize for it. Move forward then. Okay. Move forward for the sake of that person you're advocating for. Because at the end of the day, that's what's going to matter most. All right. Stay tuned for that live. I will be sharing some additional resources from PFLAG, which I think will help allies, especially when it comes to knowledge and knowing like talking points. If you have any thoughts, share them in the comments below. Thank you all for listening, and I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your night. Talk soon. Bye.